Welcome back to Roadworthy-ish. In the last few episodes, we got this car built, being put back together, and drive tested it. In this one, it's all about the small details, getting it dialed in and ready for the big road trip. Let's go! Next thing is, due to us getting the new wheels, are to set the height. In the rear and in the front. Also, we need to get the front wheels about an inch outward, and there are a couple ways we can do that. I'll tell you more about that later. But first we need to set the height, and then we need to make sure it tracks like it should up front. First off, we start with uncracking these sleeves that hold the spring in place. This has just been put on, not that firmly, so it's pretty easy. From there, I take some measurements. This was all set up before it's put on the car, so I kind of know they're the same length. So if I just use the top one as a reference point and get it down 1 inch, that will kind of fit the bill. So, starting off by doing that, getting the lower one where I want it, and then we just turn down the top one to get it down to where it should be, and you do the other side, and that should be the rear. And that being done, the rear should be set. Just wanted to see how it looks, so put it on the ground, took it outside, and as you can see, it got lower to the point where it hugs the tire pretty good. It could get even lower, but it is also a compromise of if you can drive it, you need a little room to maneuver the rear coilovers. So that being done, let's move on to the fronts, where it's not just a question of height, it's also a question of width. Basically up front, it's the same process as in the rear. You undo the nuts, and then you measure, set the bottom one, and adjust the top one accordingly. See me lowering it onto wooden blocks, as otherwise I wouldn't be able to get it off the jack. But this is also to get a look at the stance, to see how the height is going to be. Just unloading the front suspension, wiggling it about, and checking the height and the width. So on the right side of the car, it clears pretty much as it should. When measured up, the right front tire wheel is a little bit more to the front than the left, so that is due to some adjustment that we need to do later on. But this clears on the right side. And also, I'll just show you here, this is the fitment without the spacers on the front. You have about 1 inch from the wheel outer onto the fender, and this is on the left side of the car where there has been put on a spacer, and here just sits totally perfect. The only issue being that when I run those spacers, the wheel moves a little bit more to the front and the rear when you steer from lock to lock, and that makes it rub. So and just look at that. I really love how the look of this car and the stance has come together. The color, both the car and the over fenders, all the accents, that kind of stuff. The only thing is this. It's the fitment of the wheels, how far out I can run them. I want to run them as we do on the left side, because that looks the best, but there's an issue with that, and I'll get into that here later. So, pulling off the right front, putting on the spacers just like the left side, making sure that we have the wheel all the way out where we want it. And this is not the final solution. I don't think you can say that anymore, but this is not going to be the way it's going to be solved. This is a spacer on top of a spacer to not have to cut the wheel studs. That is actually the only reason why, but they just fit. But I'm gonna be making some longer lower control arms at some point, just like we did on the A86. But for now, this is just to get everything where we want it, and to have a look at it and see if it will work. Especially with rubbing, as these cars were not meant to run 15-inch with these sticky, wide, big tires. And that really did the trick. Car now sits just like I want it to, with the proper stance and height. I don't think it needs to go lower. I think this is just perfect. And from here on, it is just about the finishing. I had so much overspray on the wheels from the paint job. Remind me not to do that again, especially with these wheels on the car. So they have to be rebuffed to get all the paint off, and this actually ended up taking quite a while. and wheels buffed and looking really good, it was time to put on some decals. I've chosen to run my own logo and kind of do it like the old Jägermeister race cars. So I'm gonna have this logo on the doors, and then we're gonna have some decals up front and up rear. I'll be put on later. But for now, for the big road trip, I just wanted this to be the finishing touches, so I wanted these to be put on there first. And final preparations for the big road trip tomorrow. One of the problems being that it's rubbing a bit in the front. This front tire sits a little more to the front than the other side, and that was done to clear the inner wheel well. But now we are rubbing on the flare instead. So if anything, the flare should have been moved a little bit further up front. It's always hard when you fit these guys to where to place them, especially when running such a fat tire, also such a big tire, and also spaced out so wide, because every time you space or get a lower ET, the wheel will sit further out. When you turn, especially when it's a wide tire with a wheel with a fat tire on, it will reach further out and it'll touch and rub the car. I can live with that. That doesn't really matter. The problem being the over fender that we rub, and we rub it pretty hard. You can actually see on the tire. So when this tire gets really hot when we're out driving, it will grab onto this. If we are going in reverse, I turn the wheel and this grabs onto this. This will pull up the entire fender, probably break it. So we have to see if we can get around this somewhere, somehow. I'm gonna take a few measurements as to where the center is of the wheel. Compared to the other side, I would like them to be squared off all the way. So that's going to be the first thing. Then I'm going to look into moving it a little bit backwards. Last resort is moving the over fender. But let's just see how much room we got to play with. Another option is fitting another wheel, but this wheel setup is what I want to go with. So and it's also, yeah, it's the narrowest of the Toyo R888Rs in 15s, so we can't go any narrower than this. Then we have to downsize, and I don't want to put 14s on this car because I think the 15s are just perfect. So yeah, what to do? I'm gonna have a look at the other side first, because the other side strangely isn't a problem, either fender well or front. So I'm gonna see how that clears and how that measures up, and then I'm gonna see if we can replicate this over here. Alright, what controls this motion or the orientation of the front wheel is this guy. So with this we can adjust where the front wheel should sit. As far as I can tell from measuring right to left, this wheel needs to sit just under half an inch more backwards. That will make room to not rub on the front fender. It will still rub on the innermost part of the inside here. That doesn't matter, because that is only when you go full lock, and I can live with that. That's for parking and really slow driving. But this issue with hitting the front here, here I'll show you, because it is actually a big problem. As you see, this is all like brushed down to, rubbed down to bare metal. These are metal, by the way, not fiberglass. This is gonna rust, and also when you back the car up, and if the front wheel is hot, it will grab and it will just fold up the entire front and break it. So we really need to be careful about that. Also, when driving, just turning the slightest will make the wheel contact, and that causes it to smoke. And yeah, and the door sills in the car actually had a lot of all that tire debris that I remember from drifting, that you get everywhere in your car, and I was wondering how how did that get there? That is from smoking the tires when just driving and just turning gently. So let's see if we can get this wheel about half an inch more to the rear, and that should clear up that problem. Then we need to align the front again, but that's not going to be a problem. That's like the least of it. So see if we can get this, all these bolts here knocked loose. This is some really old crusty stuff, but I think we need to give it a go. I think that is the way to move forward with this thing. And removing the nut on the front tension bar is not gonna be easy. This has just been sitting on the car for 52 years, so the bushing hasn't been changed and the nut hasn't been off, and it hasn't been adjusted. That is also why one side is 1 inch off compared to the other. Also, you can see that from the thread that is still left in the front from when adjusting them. There's about a 1 inch difference. So also, this car being so low right now, the front sway bar actually rides on the rails, the front cross members on the car, so it pulls a lot of this on the steering as you drive along, and that'll have to be sorted at some point also. I think I'm going to be putting on some RCAs at some point. We're going to be making some to get the sway bar out of the way from the frame. So this is actually going nowhere. Fire and penetration oil and ugga-duggas, even gravity assisted wrenches, nothing works. So this is just going to be left on the car, and we will cut it with Roadtrip when we get to doing it at some point. Roadtrip starting well. It's 6 in the morning. Couldn't really sleep because I had a problem with the car rubbing over here. So I decided to just get up and do something about it. These are metal over fenders, which I kind of like because they give some clean lines. But that being said, if you rub like I do here with my front tire, or did, then it could cause a problem because it's gonna heat up. And with the thick spacers I was running about an inch, these fat guys here, combined with a little extra spacer, the stance was just perfect up front. It was just like it is in the rears. Really, really good. But I'll have to live with this, and I say that with emphasis on the live, because just driving and turning, just like traffic driving, the wheel would rub in front. And these being metal, as I said, at some point it's going to be the tire, or it's going to be the over fender that gives way. If it's the over fender, it'll just slash the tire, and that's game over. If it's the tire, well, funny thing, still game over. So just decided on pulling the thick spacers and adding just a 3mm just for clearing, and that'll have to do for the road trip because I'm not gonna take the chance. So now it is 6:30, and I need to load up and get on the road. And first pit stop of the day, picking up my boy Truckosaurus in his El Camino, talking shit like always. And I'm already down 25 points because I had to open the hood, and I'll tell you about that in the next episode. But look at that car, that stance, those colors. This is what I wanted all along for this thing. It is just gorgeous. And back on the road, this is the first time since the rebuild that I'm gonna be putting some miles on the car, so I am just really strung up, listening to all the funny new noises and whatever, also being really sensitive when the car is steering due to the sway bars rubbing on the cross members. But still, driving this car is just really cool. It is quietened down really just a lot from the last road trip, but still there's a very distinctive whine from the rear diff that you can hear. All bearings been changed, and everything being set to spec. This is the gears that are just worn, so it seems like I'm gonna have to get it rebuilt somewhere or get some new gears on there, but it doesn't really matter. It is such a joy driving, and everything, well, almost everything works, and that is just awesome. Getting closer and closer to our destination. Also getting a bit tired in the head, but hey, that's how it goes. And I was the first one to back down on this patch of grass, and I got stuck because there's no give in the suspension, so we had to push it out. But hey, doesn't matter, we're here. So let's eat some great food, talk a lot of shit, and then head on back home. And I'm gonna be making a list of what I need to do to this car to get it where I want, and we will be working on that in the next few episodes over the winter. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe if you want to see more. That helps a lot, and I will see you on the next one.